Hello dear friends, today we are painting a flower called helenium, and my sketch is already prepared, but I would like to give you a few notes about your sketch when you will be drawing yours on paper. I would like to point out that the interesting thing about this flower is the petal. The end of the petal over here looks more like a heart. So every time when you will sketch out your each petal of your flower, remember to pay special attention to the shape of each petal. Sometimes you can find even three elements of the petal. Also, it's much easier to sketch your flowers by first outlining a circle, like I did over here, and then placing your flower inside the circle. And depending on the perspective, if you see the flower flat lay or you see it at the angle, the circle will deform. Sometimes it will look like an oval, meaning that you see the flower from a different angle. It will help you to create the correct length of petals, so everything looks nice and proportionate. If you don't feel like drawing yourself, you can always download the sketch, the outline of this exact drawing in our Patreon. The link to the Patreon is in the description to this video. Alright, now I need to remove the lines of this sketch to make sure that they are almost invisible. I make them dark on purpose so that you could see the drawing, but now I need to carefully remove them so that we can start working with watercolor. Now my sketch is almost invisible even to me, which is perfect because I need to know that the dark pencil line is not going to shine through light and yellow colors of our flower, and now the sketch is perfect. And it should be the same for you as well. It should be barely visible. So, how do we approach this painting? We will work mostly with wet and dry technique, and sometimes we will use wet and wet for the hearts of the flowers. We will mostly use yellow and some drops of orange, and I would like to pre-mix my orange color by using yellow, I'm using cadmium yellow and red. Now I have nice and bright orange color. You can of course use a pre-made color if you have it in your palette. I like to mix my own colors. And the red is cadmium red. We will also need a bit of black, and maybe we will use burnt sienna, but I'm not sure yet. We will see how it goes. And of course we'll need some green for the leaves and the stem. Let's start from the top flower and move down because it's more practical and makes more sense. So I'll start from the heart of the flower, and first I'll apply just clean, pure water on the heart of our flower. Now I am introducing yellow, the same yellow as I mentioned earlier, cadmium. And now I'll take a bit of burnt sienna, add a bit of blue, in my case it's Indantran blue, and you see how immediately the color became much darker. It happened because I used the rules of color mixing by adding complementary color to my brown. Now I add a bit of black so that my black doesn't look too flat, and while the flower is, the heart of the flower, the yellow layer is still wet, I am dropping some bits and pieces of our dark mix. You can see how the colors are mixing and flowing nicely. Sometimes I'm even kind of dropping some spots outside to make it look more fluffy and playful. And for now, I'll just leave it be, and I'll do exactly the same thing for the next flower. The reason I do not continue working on the first flower is because I don't want to risk dark color leaking into the petals, because it will inevitably happen when the wet brush will touch the wet area of our flower. Yellow first, and exactly same approach. First, I'll drop some burnt sienna or any brown, warm brown color that you have. And after that, a few drops, dot-like moves of darker tone, which is the same brown with bits of blue and black. Nothing new here, the same as we just pre-mixed earlier. And leave it to dry. And the final heart will be a bit different, because we see it in perspective, and we see black part over here, right in the middle, right in the center. And we're gonna need to include it into our plan while working on the whole central part. So yellow first, then a bit of burnt sienna, but just tiny bit. And this time, I'll not add black just yet. I would like to wait for this part to be dry first, and then we will use a layering technique to create more specific shapes and shadows on this particular heart of the flower. It's quite special here. So now we need to make sure that all 3 parts are completely dry before we start moving to painting the petals. The first layer is dry. You can see some cute cauliflowers happening here and there because we had lots of water and it got dry and stayed on the surface and created those cute cauliflower effects. Some artists don't like it, but I think it really depends on the type of the painting you're working on and your particular style. Now I would like to work with wet on dry technique. And I'll get my yellow first, and with a pretty watery brush I will cover all the petals first. Going all the way up to the center, the heart of the flower. Remember to keep your brush moistured. It should be wet so that you don't get dry strokes. And now I can introduce some of the orange tones here, just like we already pre-mixed before. Note that I'm not going all the way to the edge of the petal. I start pretty concentrated at the root of the petal, but as we go further away here at the edge of it, the colors are still yellow. You can see yellow shining through, and everywhere at the edge it is still pure yellow. We need that. Now we need this to rest, and I actually forgot one more petal over here. And now we can move to the next flower. Don't be afraid to touch the center, the heart of the flower, so that it doesn't look like your petals are hanging in the air with some white space in between the petal and the center of the flower. And the final flower. And just like before, I'm dropping some yellow tones here and there, and because I'm working right away on the still wet yellow layer, the colors are blending and bleeding smoothly. Also important here to pay attention to how the shades are created. If you look at my sketch before, the preparational sketch, you can see that every time when there's a petal that is covering on top of the other one has a shadow that the top one is casting on it, which is very natural. However, it's important to remember about this, and every time when you paint a petal, to think which petal is on top and which one is behind it, so that the top petal has more light and it's more yellow, and the bottom petal has a bit more shade. This is exactly the way how we can separate one petal from another without outlining it, like if we were painting the coloring book. So now we need to separate each petal one from another, and we'll make it look more realistic by creating shadows. And for that, I'd like to get darker tone of red by taking red and adding a bit of green, which is a complementary color. on the color wheel, and it will make our red darker and calmer. And then we will add our yellow, trying to achieve some sort of orange but kind of muted darker tone. And now, applying one stroke carefully, rinsing my brush so it's semi-wet, I am smoothing out the edge. In some places you can see more of the red. In other places more of yellow. And every time you get a sharp stroke, you want to rinse your brush over the tissue and dilute the hard edge. The other way to go about it is to try to mix yellow with your brown, so you'll get kind of lighter version of it, which will also work pretty well for what we're doing here. If you don't like your mix, you can try the second option. Important to pay attention to the petals that are in the bottom. They're behind all of the other petals. So they should be darker. The way to separate one petal from another is to not just simply outline it with a different color, but to create a shadow. The petal that's behind the one we don't see should be darker in tone, but this tone we can carefully dilute with a brush so we don't see a hard edge, but the darker tone is still there, and by simply being there, it makes the lighter petal, the lighter tone, popping up and more visible. Now we can try the same with the next flower, and here I'd like to go more into red color palette. A stroke, rinse the brush, dilute the stroke, and repeat. Always remember to look out for sharp edges. If you get one, Do not wait too long because it will get dry and it will be much more difficult to correct it and remove it. But use the chance to dilute the edge and lead it towards the direction that you need, or remove it completely, whatever it is that you need at this particular part. And the final one. Here we already have some interesting texture, so I'll simply add a bit darker, noticeable tones in places where I think it would work better, but not everywhere. Like the one on the top, I think I'll just keep it the way they are. They look pretty cute with those dried out layers already. What I do care about is separation of one petal from another. And here again, you can see I am applying darker tone first right under our top petal over here. And now I am diluting the edge so it's not so sharp and dry. And I just have a simply darker tone right beneath this petal, but it makes it pop up more. This technique is called negative space technique. We are creating objects by outlining them. And here we go. The second part of our work is done. And now I would like to connect our hearts with the petals because now they look a little bit cut out. And this is exactly why we didn't finish it in the beginning, because we knew that we will continue working on them. So now I need a darker tone. I take black flower hearts mixed with brown, and my brush is not super wet, it's not dripping water, but it's not dry either, so it's something in between. And with the dot-like moves, I'm creating the darkest part of this painting. Some areas you even want to stretch it a little bit into the painting. I mean, a little bit into the petals. And with a very concentrated yellow, I would like to just drop some areas, the yellow vibrant spots. Of course, they will not cover black, but in some places they will very noticeably shine through, and I'd like to keep it this way. For this one, I will go over our central part, the heart of the flower, like so, with the yellow color. And then do the same thing as with our first flower by adding darkest black mixed with brown tone. And the final one, you remember I said it's pretty special because first I'd like to work with the brown color that will be a little bit calmer by adding blue. So I'm adding blue into my brown, and I have pretty dark brown over here, but it's still brown. So it's just calmer in terms of the tone. And now applying the second layer on our heart of the flower, we can create deeper tones. And the final piece will be this oval right in the heart. Make sure it doesn't bleed too much because the layers are pretty wet. And with the dot-like moves, I'm creating the same texture in the center as with all the other flowers. Now I'd like to add a bit of texture to the petals. So I'll take a very dry brown, and here and there just introduce very thin and delicate strokes. Make sure that they are thin and they should be on a dry paper, because if you're painting, if your petals are still wet, the strokes will just dilute. So if you're not sure, just better to wait. If you feel like in some petals this is a color too dark, you can use orange and do the same with the orange color. Just remember to keep your strokes thin and delicate. Also remember to not overdo it. It's important to know when to stop so that the amount of strokes like this doesn't look too overwhelming. Our final step would be to paint the stem. My green is very bright, so I would like to calm it down by adding drops of red, complementary color to green. And now we have nice and deep green color. And very carefully, I'm first creating a stem. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. In fact, it would look odd if your stem is perfectly straight. It's the flower after all, so it can be a bit bended or curved. And I would like to paint the leaf with bits of yellow. And right away with darker tone of green, I just show the shadow on the leaf. Here will be another leaf from a different flower, that's why I didn't touch it. And the stem has some light on it, some cool light. That's why I took a little bit of very transparent blue, cold blue. In my case, it's helenium. And now with the darkest mix of green, I helped myself a little bit by adding black, so it's just faster. Don't want to make this leaf too dark, so I'm removing a bit of the color, and the remaining leaf will be also a mix of green with yellow. Be careful not to leak one color into another on the leaves. It's best to wait until they are completely dry. Also, quite common mistake is to not connect the lines accordingly. So if you start your stem here, it should go behind the flower all the way down here and appear on the same line, on the same trajectory, because sometimes artists would paint a stem here and then the bottom of the stem will be somewhere here, which is not very natural. But, well, sometimes happens. So make sure that all the lines are aligned, like this stem goes here behind and comes up over here. This flower has this stem, and this one we already checked. All right, I think that the last and final touch could be some splashes. I'll take yellow with green, so it's nice and summery. Use lots of water and sprinkle. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed painting with me if you if you followed my guidance, and I will be very happy to see your paintings too, so feel free to share them with us, and looking forward to see you again in the next tutorial.